शारदा शारदाम्भोजवदनां वदनाम्बुजे सर्वदा सर्वदास्माकं सन्निधिः सन्निधिं क्रियात्। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। भारती करुणापात्रं भारती पदभूषणं भारती पदमारूढं भारती चित्तमाश्रये। विद्या विनयसम्पन्नं वीतरागं विवेकिनं वन्दे वेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञं विदुशेखरभारतीं सद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः. Welcome to the Dharma Shastra and the Nyaya Shastra lecture series. Dr. Jangunathan will start with the Dharma Shastra lectures, which will be followed by my talk on Nyaya Shastra.
Namaskaram. Thank you for all of you joining today. And we are going to talk about the aim of the talk finally is to talk about Smriti Muktapalam, which is, you see this book. This is only one volume. The thickness you can see. There are 7 volumes like that. So this is just one volume, 7 volumes like that. It's called Smriti Muktapalam, or it has been called Vaidyanatha Dikshitiyam. So just wanted to show that book. It has been printed, all 7 copies have been printed by the Kanchi Mutt. And that will be the basis. But what is Vaidyanatha Dikshitiyam? Before we come to it, we need to know the basics of the literature of Dharma Shastras. So only if you know what is the panorama of literature of Dharma Shastras, then you will get to know where Vaidyanatha Dikshitiyam stands on it. And I think the general rule is Dharma Shastras are basically, the way of code of conduct of life, which Alvarji himself has mentioned, that Krishna himself has mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, that all your actions should be dictated by Shastras and not according to your whims and fancies. And so where are these Shastras are? Because the reason is we don't know things of the world. And, there is in the Panchadashi of Vidyaranya Swamigal, there is a chapter called Dvaita Viveka, which comes to the 4th chapter in Panchadashi. And there, when Vidyaranya Swamigal is describing the Dvaita Viveka, he brings about Ishvara Shrishti and Jiva Shrishti. And then he says, in Ishvara Shrishti, some of them are easily conduit to take you to Brahman, and some of them will take you away from Brahman. So the Srishti itself is like that. So, for example, if you drink Somapanam as part of the Soma Yajnam, that is supposed to uplift you spiritually. The same spiritual liquor, whatever you drink as part of a party, will pull you down. I'm just giving you one example. Even the same substance, if you drink, and even that, same way, there are a lot of yajnas and so things like that. And if you do them, they're going to uplift you. But even like the Chandogya Upanishad lists that if you kill a Brahmin, or if you kill a warrior, or you drink, you do adultery, those all will pull you down. So basically, these are all, already existing in Ishvara Srishti. So you need to know which one is useful. For example, there is one called the Ashwatha tree. We call Arasamaram in Tamil. The Ashwatha tree is, and if you go pradakshina around the Ashwatha tree on particular days, it is supposed to give you spiritual benefits. But the same, if you go around the pine tree, it's not going to give you that benefit. So the Ashwatha tree, for example, and then the Audumbara tree, for example, the fig tree. And we call it Attimaram in Tamil. Attimaram, Audumbara tree, fig tree, which gives the fig. That is auspicious. If you go pradakshina on Audumbara tree on certain days, it gives you benefit. But if you go and do pradakshina on your, bamboo garden or something, it's not going to give you pradakshina. So this is to give you an example how in Ishvara Shrishti itself, there are certain things which are conducted for conduit for upliftment and for conduit for pulling down. So how do you know, which tree is beneficial, which plant is beneficial, which food is beneficial? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, these foods will give you Sattva Guna, these will give you Rajo Guna. So only the Dharma Shastra. So basically, only if you read the Dharma Shastras, they are going to give you those in the Ishvara Srishti, which of the creations are a conduit to go to Brahman, and which of them will you take away. And even those which are conduit of Brahman, how do you approach them? If you go and do Ashwatha tree pradakshina just on any day, it's not going to give you benefit. Ashwatha tree pradakshina on certain days, certain times, if you do pradakshina for that, it gives you spiritual benefit. So it is not only knowing which are the substances which will give you benefit, but what is the appropriate time and place to use it also should be known. So we get all these detail from the Dharma Shastras. So that is just giving an introduction of the role of Dharma Shastras. And what are the sources of Dharma Shastras is basically the first and foremost source is Vedo Akila Dharma Moolam. That was Manusmriti says, which means Vedas are the most important sources of the Dharmas. So the Vedas are, Anantove Vedaha. For example, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, we have Satyana Pramadidavyam, Dharmana Pramadidavyam, Kushalana Pramadidavyam, Deva Pitrukarya Abhyana Pramadidavyam, Swadhyaya Pravachana Abhyana Pramadidavyam. This says do this, do Deva Pitru Karmas. So it just gives you the guideline. Do Deva Pitru Karmas, do a Veda Adhyayana, and and teach that. These are all just given. The question is, down comes Veda Adhyayana. How are you supposed to do Veda Adhyayana exactly? For example, you may or may not know, if there is severe thunderstorm going on, you should not do Veda Dhyana on that days. It's very specifically mentioned. If there is a big thunderstorm going on in your community, you cannot do Veda Dhyana on those days. So this is an example. So even though the Vedas say doing Veda Dhyana is useful, it will not be useful if you do it on certain days. Same thing, it says Deva Pitru Karya Bena Pramadidavyam. So what are the Deva Karyas? What are the Pitru Karyas? In the Vedas itself, there is a glimpse of Sandhya Vandana, but the details of each and every step is given only in Dharma Shastras. So the Vedas are the root source. In some part of the Vedas, even the procedures are discussed in detail, but in some parts, it only gives you a thing to do, but you may not know the procedural details. And there is two reasons why we don't know, because Vedas are infinite. Probably the information in some Veda, in some part, but it is probably not available to us during this time period. So maybe there is a very detailed strip of how to do Amavasya Tarpana in the Vedas, but we don't seem to have access to it. Either it's probably lost or it is, not available for the current time period. So like this, everything is supposed to be in the Vedas, but we are not, the Vedas are, even when Vedavyasa gave, he only gave a limited fraction of Vedas for the Kali Yuga period. So though the source is the Vedas, we may not get all the information from the Vedas itself. So then comes the Smritis. So the Smritis are what? The Rishis who have a complete knowledge of the Vedas. They have given us the do's and don'ts taken up directly from the Vedas. So the Smritis are the most, before the Smritis, I have to talk about the Sutras, Kalpa Sutras. So Kalpa Sutras are part of the Vedangas, the 6 Vedangas, Chandas, Nirukta, Jyotisha, Siksha, the Kalpa Sutra is part of that. The Kalpa Sutras are divided into 4 subdivisions. You have the Griha Sutra, the Srauta Sutra, the Dharma Sutra, and the Shulba Sutra. So each, the Kalpa, for example, Apastamba Dharma Sutra, Apastamba Kalpa Sutra is there. Apastamba Kalpa Sutra has 4 subdivisions. There is a Griha Sutra part, there is a Srauta Sutra part, there is the Shulba Sutra part, and there is a Dharma Sutra part. Same thing if you go to Bodhayana Sutra, there is all 4. Some like Gautama Sutra, Vasishtha Sutra may not have all the 4. They might have only a couple of them. Maybe they have just the Griha Sutra, the Dharma Sutras. So the Dharma Sutras are part of the Kalpa Sutras. And there are several Kalpa Sutras. Like even for the Yajurveda, there are supposed to be 6. Apastamba, Bodhyayana, and Bharadvaja, there is like this. And even for the Samaveda, there is specific Kalpa Sutras. For Atharva Veda, there is specific Kalpa Sutras. And for the Rig Veda, there is specific Kalpa Sutras done by these Rishis. Since Yajurveda is most common and most people follow either Apastamba Sutra, Bodhayana Sutra, that's what you see privilege. But if you go to see with somebody with Samaveda or something, Rig Veda, they may have Ashwalayana Sutra or Gopi Sutra, those kind of sutras you will see in some people specifically following some Vedas. So you need to know what, that's why when you take the Abhivade, we say Apastamba Bada, you say the Gotra and the Sutra which you follow. When you're telling the Abhivade Namaskaram, you tell I'm of this Gotra and I follow this Sutra. So you should know what Sutra you belong from your tradition, and you're supposed to know the details of the Sutra. So the Apastamba Sutra and the Dharma, the Gautama Sutra, they have a specific section called Dharma Sutras. And they are like small, they will give you do this, do that, all what are the Dharma rules. The Griha Sutra talks about all the Smarta Karma, the Shautra Sutras talk about all the Vaidiya Karmas, all the big Vedic Yajnas and how to do it. And the Shulba Sutras are mainly mechanical mathematics, which tells you the dimensions of how to construct all the yajna and other things like that. So the Dharma, so that is first. So Vedas are one important source. The Dharma Sutras, which are part of the Kalpa Sutras, are the second important source. Then comes the third important source is the Smritis, which is again, they are not Vedangas, they are a separate division, whereas the Kalpa Sutra is part of the Vedangas. The Smritis are again given by Rishis or either Raja Rishis or Brahma Rishis. They are the ones who give us the Smritis. And they are the ones which again, they have the knowledge of both the Sutras and the Vedas, and then they give us a list of things to be done and not done. So in that, the Manusmriti is supposed to be the most important. Then comes Yajnavakya Smriti. There are like 18 Smritis like that. I can list all the 18 Smritis. It varies upon which book you follow. For example, there is a Yakshas, there is a Yama Smriti, there is a Daksha Smriti, there is a Vyasa Smriti, there is a Narada Smriti, there is a Angirasa Smriti. So there is depending upon the Rishis, but the four important ones are Manusmriti, Yajnavakya Smriti, Shankalikita Smriti, and Parasara Smriti. Those are the four important, but there are, as I said, there are 18, 19, like a lot of them. So the Manusmriti is supposed to be the most important, but people say that for the Kali Yuga, Parasara Smriti is more important. But if you see all the Vedic Pandits, they will know Manusmriti because everything is kind of a derivation of Manusmriti, other Smritis. The Yajnavakya Smriti is also very important, and the Sloka, Vedani Angas, Chatvaro, Mimamsinaya, Vistaraga, Puranam Dharma Shastram, Vidya Hetu Chaturudasa, the 14 Vidyas, that particular sloka, 4 Vedas, 6 Vedangas, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Dharma Shastra, Purana. That 14 Vidyas, that is actually listed in Yajnavakya Smriti. That sloka, which I said, Angani Vedas Chatvaro, Mimamsinaya Vistaraha, Puranam Dharma Shastram, Vidya Hetu Chaturudasa. That 14, that particular sloka is directly taken from the Yajnavakya Smriti. It lists the Chaturdacha Vidya. So same way, there is, there are, these are all big digests. Manusmriti, I have a copy in my home. That book also is almost this big size. One, that is Manusmriti, but that's only one volume. And so that is there. And then, so we have the Vedas, the Dharma Sutras, the Smritis. Then comes the fourth group, the Puranas and Itihasas. So they also are a source of all the Dharma Shastras. For example, if you look at Brahmanda Purana, or whatever Bhagavata Purana, there are some slokas which will tell you exactly what procedures you have to do. There are some details of doing some rituals. Also how to give danas, like giving charities. How to do Tirtha Yatra. You go for a pilgrimage. What are the rules you have to follow? These are all listed in Puranas. Skanda Purana has a lot of the details. Brahmanda Purana has lots of. It also gives you not only the Kshetra Mahatmya, it will also tell you what rules you have to follow before you go to the Kshetra. So if you want to go to Tirupati and other things, so those are all those, this is called the Tirtha Yatra Kanda, it is there. So the Puranas are also another important source. There is, if you read the Puranas and Dharma Itihasas, there is a lot of rules and regulations mentioned there. And also it also gives you even by story descriptions, what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. So these are the 5 important sources, and there is a 6th important source, which is very well mentioned in all of the important acharyas have mentioned that. They call Shishtachara. Shishta Achara. Shishta Achara means following the way of how the Mahatmas do things. So if you don't know what to do at all, you look at Sringeri Acharya or Kanchi Acharya or a guru, it comes from the Vaidika Parampara, and you see how they follow the rules and regulations, and and you kind of just imbibe directly from them. So the quality for Shishta Achara is very clearly mentioned. Who do you call a Shishta? So then you can, if you call somebody as a Shishta, is called, and whatever he follows is called Shishta Achara, you can follow it blindly. And in fact, that is given some higher importance in some of the scriptures also. And the Shishta Achara means basically they should be well versed in the Vedas and the Dharma Shastras themselves. That is number 1 criteria. Number 2, they should be free of raga dvesha, which means attachment and aversion. They should be beyond both attachment and aversions. And third, they should have indriya nigraha and mano nigraha. So anybody who has all these 3 qualities, who is having a good knowledge of the Vedas and the Shastras, and who has got Raga Dvesha Vivarjita, and who has got control of the Shanta Danta, which is the mind and interior control, they are all considered to be Shishtas. And whatever they do, if you follow it, that itself is enough. So that is Manusmriti, Yajñavaka Smriti, everything mentions that. Parasara Smriti takes it to a little higher level and says, Parishad. The term Parishad is also mentioned in some of the Smritis. Parishad means a group of people. So you don't have one person like what we call the grand jury or the Supreme Court, 7 justices. So you have the 4 or 5 people who are of the same high quality. You not one Shishta. You are like 4 or 5 Shishtas and they form a Parishad. And whatever the Parishad decides is also considered acceptable. So if you have like we for example in medicine we follow cardiology guidelines. 5 top experts, 10 top experts from the country come together. They analyze all the literature and every 3 years they will write, this is now the new guidelines for managing heart failure. This is the new guideline for managing pneumonia. So they will release these guidelines. And these are like top international experts who are scholarly and who are very practically experienced. They come and give guidelines for us. So it's the same thing like that. The Parishad giving together, they form guidelines and that is also considered acceptable. So these are all the different sources. So Vedas, Dharma Sutras, Smritis, Itihasa Puranas, the Shishtacharas. So these are all the different sources from where we get the guidelines of how to live and how not to live. So where does the question of Nibandhas come? So what happens is when you have so much information, as time passes by, people are getting confused. Okay, I got Veda information, Dharma Sutra information, Smriti information, Itihasa Purana information, Shishtachara information. So they put some people who come together and put all of them together in one place. So they take like this, like reading a textbook. So they get information from the Vedas, they get information from the Smritis and Dharma Sutras, they take information from the Itihasa Puranas. They also take up information from people, Mahatmas who have lived during that time periods, and they put all of them together and they come up with a big digest. And that is what is called Nibandhas. So the Nibandhas are the things. So that is always, so basically you don't need to go and read anything else. You don't need to read the Vedas, Sutras, Smritis, Acharya Shishtacharas, or Itihasa Puranas. You can directly go and read the Nibandhas and you can get all information in one place. So these Nibandhas also periodically, like you get multiple editions of the book. There are several Nibandhas which keep coming for every time period. You know, there are several Nibandhas which have come. The Vaidyanatha Dikshitam, actually the author himself calls it as Smriti Mukta Phalam. That is the author, that is the textbook name. Vaidyanatha Dikshidhar. He lived in a village called Kandramanikam. Kandramanikam is like Nachiyar Koil, close to Tanjavur area. And that village was supposed to be a big Vaidika village. I don't think it even exists now, or it's no longer that, but it was supposed to be a big Vaidika village for several centuries.
No, it's still there. If you look at Brahacharnam,
Okay.
out of the subsects of Brahacharnam, Kandramanika Brahacharnam is still very much there.
That's
so, for example, my family is from there only. We say Kandramanika Brahacharnam. Kandramanikam is a village. That's where it is from. So this is.
So Kandramanikam is well known, and for example, the other person which Kandramanikam is very famous is Dharmaraj Adravindra. I read his book all the time, Vedanta Paribhasha. He was a very big Nyaya scholar and Vedanta scholar. Dharmaraj Adravindra and his son Ramakrishna Adravindra, both of them were big Vedantic scholars. They have written a lot of books also. They also from Kandramanikam only. So like it is supposed to produce a lot of scholars, and there are supposed to be a lot of yajñas and everything done during that time period there. And so Vaidyanatha Dikshidhar is supposed to have lived 200 to 250 years ago. That's what Mahapariva, this is based on Mahapariva's estimation. That's what he says, that he says nobody has details, except the details which Dikshidhar himself has given in his book. He tells very clearly that he's like Bharadvaja Gotra, he's a big Rama Bhakta. These are all details given by Dikshidhar himself in his book. If you read the opening first 10-15 slokas, Dikshidhar tells very briefly about himself. So other than that, we don't have data, but Mahapariva probably through his different sources he has collected, and he says that he estimates that Dikshidhar lived about 250 years ago. So that is how and I will give you some Nibandhas. Like I told you, Smritis, you cannot imagine how many Nibandhas are there. And I will just give you the name of like 10 or 12. There are like several, but I will give you the most important ones just for you to remember the names. There is one called Kritya Kalpataru by Lakshmi Dhara, Smriti Chandrika by Devana Bhatta, Chatur Vidya Chintamani, that is supposed to be the biggest, Chatur Varga Chintamani by Hemadri. That is supposed to be the biggest of all. It was Hemadri was the prime minister in one of the kingdoms, and he wrote this big digest called Chatur Varga Chintamani. Smriti Ratnakara by Chandeshwara, Nirnaya Chintamani by Vachaspati Mishra, Smriti Tattva by Raghunandana. Raghunandana was a big Bengali scholar. Nirnaya Sindhu by Kamalakara Bhatta. This is and very clearly it is stated that during the last couple of centuries, Nirnaya Sindhu and Smriti Muktapalam, they are considered the two top notches as of today's. If somebody wants to tell you what is the top notch Nibandha as of today, one is Nirnaya Sindhu, the second one is Smriti Muktapalam. Nirnaya Sindhu is followed by people in the north, and Smriti Muktapalam is followed by the people in the south. So that is kind of the, so if you go to any northern Vedic scholars and all, they will probably quote from Nirnaya Sindhu. So Nirnaya Sindhu is authored by Kamalakara Bhatta. Kamalakara Bhatta comes from a very, very famous family, Narayana Bhatta and others. He comes from a very famous, there's a big lineage, and you won't believe what and all. The Narayana Bhatta was, his father was supposed to be having magical powers also. He could bring rain, everything. Those stories are all mentioned. So Narayana Bhatta was a big scholar in Kashi, and Kamalakara Bhatta, there were his sons. And so Kamalakara Bhatta authored this Nirnaya Sindhu, and Mayuka by Nilakanta Bhatta, Veeramitrodaya by Mitra Mishra. That is another very famous thing. Veeramitrodaya is another Nibandha by Mitra Mishra. Dharma Sindhu by Kashinath Upadhyaya. Smriti Kaustuba by Anantadeva. Anantadeva comes in the Ekanath family. You know the famous Maharashtra saint Ekanath, his grandson or great grandson Anantadeva. So it comes. So if you read these Nibandhas, you will come to know like they come from very great families, like either their parents or grandparents were big scholars or saints or something like that. And then Smriti Muktapala. So I gave you 12, but 12 is only a very small number. I can list another 20 Nibandhas, but these have come in several centuries. For example, the Chaturvarga Chintamani by Hemadri was written like almost 800, 900 years ago. Whereas the Smriti Muktapalam by Vaidyanatha Dikshitra was written like 200 years ago. So that is kind of a gist, and probably I will talk about all those things as we go along also. So this is what I wanted to understand is the literature. This is the entire literature of Dharma Shastras, and so once you know the literature, so and if you look for the reason I'm telling you this, if you go to Vaidyanatha Dikshitayam, he will take one aspect. For example, how to fix Ekadashi Tirthi, and he will tell Harita Sutras tells like this, Bharadwaja Smriti tells like this, Angirasa Smriti, he will give you different opinions of different rishis, how they decide on the Striti, and then he will give one opinion, what should we follow. So that is what it is like, he will quote, and if you take one simple Shraddha, how to wash the priest's legs, he will give you, quote, this according to this rishi, you should do this way, this rishi, you should do this way. And then he will give finally what is the most optimal that we can do, because some of them will even look conflicting, some of the opinions some rishis given this in the thing, but he tries to reconcile them as best as he can. So that is why you should know all this, because then only you will know what are the sources. So if you imagine how much he has to read to develop these Nibandhas, is a big thing. And once you come to the Nibandha itself, how is it organized? So we talked about Vedas, Dharma Sutras, Smritis, Itihasa Puranas, Shishtachara, but Nibandhas, it is like a textbook. How is the textbook organized? I will give you an example from medicine. Harrison's textbook of medicine, Davidson, these are all like very famous textbooks of medicine. We will organize by endocrine system, nervous system, gastrointestinal system, genitourinary system, musculoskeletal system. So we will talk about each system. We put the body into like 10 or 12 systems, and then we will talk about the functions. The physiology books will, even the physiology books are based upon systems. Pathology books are based on systems or some. So we'll go by systems, and then we'll tell, if you take gastrointestinal system, we will then come to what are the diseases. We'll then speak up individually. What is the problem with the liver? What is the problem with the pancreas? What is the problem with the stomach? What is the problem with the intestines? So this is how the medicine book is organized. Same way, if you go to the Nibandhas, they have a way of organizing this information for you. And they are supposed to cover 12 important components, but these 12 may not be present in all Nibandhas. For example, even Vaidyanatha Dikshitam covers only 6 of these 12. So let's say your 12 body systems, some books cover only 6 or 5 of the systems. Some books cover the entire 12 systems. That's the example I want to give to make you understand. So the Vaidyanatha Dikshitam, which we talk about, covers only 6. So what are these important things which is covered in chapter wise is, there are 12 important. One is called Varnashrama Kanda. Varnashrama means it basically details what are the duties of each Varna, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. When should a Brahmana get Upanayana? When should a Kshatriya get Upanayana? When should a Brahmana get married? What is the best time of the year for a Brahmana to get married? So these are all come under the Varnashrama Kanda. Then comes Ahnika Kanda. That is the most practically useful thing for us. Ahnika Kanda is morning to night. What and all you are supposed to do when you wake up. What time you do Sandhya Vandanam. Then you do Devata Puja. What is the time? How do you do it? Then Upasana. All those things, all the details, even how to eat your food. Parisheshana, how you are supposed to do. All that stuff, all the details, morning to night, Ahnika Kanda. So most of the acharyas, for example, the Vaishnava acharyas and all, they focus more on the Ahnika Kanda, what is supposed to do from morning to night. Then comes Asaucha Kanda. Asaucha means the rules and regulations of purity. When are you, like somebody dies or somebody is born, how long you isolate yourself, all that rules. And then how do you come out of the Asaucha? You have got Asaucha means you have got impurity. And what are you supposed to do to rectify the impurity? So Asaucha and Shuddhi Kanda, they call Shuddhi Kanda, they go together. That is third. Fourth is Shraddha Kanda. Shraddha Kanda deals with all the tarpanas and all the Pitru Karmas come under the Shraddha Kanda. And then the fifth is called as Prayashchitta Kanda. So if you did the mistake, how to do, correct yourself. You like stole, you did either knowingly, unknowingly, you stole something from somebody, or you caused a sin to somebody else. So, or you visited somebody who you are not supposed to visit. So all these are called, and how do you rectify yourself is called Prayashchitta Kanda. And then comes Apad Dharma Kanda, not Apad before, Tirthi Nirnaya Kanda, which is how to decide on all the Ekadashi, Triti, Krishna Janmashtami, Ramanavami, how you fix the time for all of that. They call it Tithi Nirnaya Kanda. Vrata Kanda. Vrata Kanda means how to follow different vratas. Your fasting rules and all that stuff, they are all coming on the vratams. How do you follow them? Then comes Tirtha Kanda. Tirtha Kanda deals with pilgrimage. When you go to center of what are the procedures and protocols you're supposed to go to Rameshwaram or Kashi, how are you exactly supposed to do, go and come back? What are you supposed to do before you go? What you're supposed to do when you're there? And what are you supposed to do when you come back? Those all come under the Tirtha Kandas. Then comes Dana Kandas, giving charity. How do you do charity? What time, when, how do you give? When do you get maximum benefit of doing? That is called Dana Kanda. Then comes Apad Dharma Kanda, very important. Apad Dharma Kanda means rules of emergencies. Suppose the whole village is in famine. You are only getting certain grains. You may not, because normally by the rules only you are supposed to eat only certain things, not eat certain things. If your city itself is in famine, the grains are not produced, what do you do? Or there is a war going on in your country or neighbor place. There is problems. So Apad Dharma Kanda gives you all the details, what and all you can do. That is, for example, the Ushasti chapter in Chandogya Upanishad is a very good example of the Apad Dharma. And then the last one is Vyavahara Kanda. Vyavahara Kanda deals with all practicalities. For example, how do you divide property between the children? How can the kingdom levy taxes on the people? So these are all part of life, but they are not considered shastric activities, but these happen day to day. There is property split happening, all this happening. And so Vyavahara Kanda deals with all these, what we call the socio-secular aspects of the life. So those are the 12 ones: Varnashrama Kanda, Ahnika Kanda, Asaucha Kanda, Shraddha Kanda, Tithi Nirnaya Kanda, Vrata Kanda, Tirtha Kanda, Dana Kanda, Dana Kanda, Prayaschitta Kanda, Apadharma Kanda, and Vyavahara Kanda. So these are the 12. So if any book which has all these 12 chapters is supposed to be complete. And again, for all the 12 chapters, you get information from all the above Vedas. That if you take they will take the Prayaschitta Kanda and they will tell if you did so and so, this is the Prayaschitta, and they will tell you this Prayaschitta is mentioned in Manusmriti or is mentioned in Taittiriya Upanishad, somewhere like that. They will quote and give you the exact place where they got the information. So with that, I'm going to stop here, just giving you an overall idea of the literature of Dharma Shastras and what is available in the Nibandhas. And Vaidyanatha Dikshitya is the one was famous in South. So that is why we are going to use that as a reference. Jai Jai Shankara, Harara Shankara.
Thank you, Dr. Jamuna, sir.
Thank you very much, Jamuna. It's a very good introduction on this Dharma Shastra topic. It's a vast topic. To put it out into saying that we are going to start off from all the top, say focus on a Nibandha which was written about 250 years ago. It's kind of a related topic on that. I think one of the questions asked before was saying that these Dharma Shastra, particularly Manu Smriti, was written long time ago, and Smritis are supposed to be for a period as opposed to Shruti. So that question came up to see how do we is there something?
I mentioned that the Manusmriti is considered the top authority for the Kali Yuga Parasara
Smriti, yes.
So that is because the time evolution, maybe all the contents of Manusmriti may not be applicable for our time period. And that's why even the Smritis keep evolving for each generation. And so that is the answer.
And Nibandhas are very nice. I think, as you rightly said, if you put down as a summary of all these things, and there are some conflict for a common people. For the highest people, it is not. Even if you take Dharma Shastra, Dharmam Chara, and Satyam Vada, Priyam Vada. So how can you sometimes Satyam is not Priyam? What do you do? Which is correct? Would be the question come up. So there is the Sukshma aspects are big in Dharma Shastra. Yes. I think that requires an amount of Nibandhas. Nibandhas literally used to mean edicts or some kind of epigraphical kind of a glossary, right? It kind of tells you everything. We used to say in research, the survey literature, but also add on to that on a specific, give a summary of saying what is your opinion on that, right? So it's very beautifully, I think that.
And then and that is why the most important thing which all the Yajnavalkya Smriti, Manusmriti, everybody mentions is Shishtachara. If you cannot follow Nibandhas, at least follow your Acharya very closely. You know, that is always considered, and sometimes some of the rishis have even given it more importance than the things. Like if you have a Mahatma of your time period, and I just want to give since it's brought about, there is a very famous, when Mahaperivas quoted this in his about Shakuntalam, Kalidasa Shakuntalam. Dushyanta is, it seems, thinking about something. You know, he's getting, when he sees Shakuntala, he's getting a love for Shakuntala even at first sight. So he's thinking to himself, is this thought right? I am a king. I am coming to the forest. I happen to see this girl who is in the Rishi's ashrama, and I am falling in love with her. Is this thought correct? He begins to analyze himself. And then Kalidasa gives an example. There are 5 grades to decide whether you are correct or not. And the first one it says is, if you are following Vedas absolutely, that is number 1. You don't need to think about anything. If you are following whatever the Vedas are telling, then you don't need to think whether you are correct or not. The second is, if you cannot follow the Vedas, you are following the Dharma Shastras as given by the Rishis correctly, you don't need to question whether you are correct or not. You can tell I am following whatever is given in Parasara Smriti. No, and according to our Sampradaya, you will not be wrong if you are following verbatim what it is there. The third is following according to the Puranas, according to the heroes of the Puranas. So the Rama, like for example, Rama in Ramayana, you say, I'm going to follow whatever Rama did as much as I can possible. So the most ideal characters which our Puranas given, Prahalada and all that. So you tell, I'm going to follow that. You will also be right most of the time. The fourth they say is Shishtachara. There they say, Mahatmas of your time period. If you follow the Mahatmas of your time period, you are also most likely going to be correct. The fifth is my own conscience. And that's what Mahaperiyava says. That's why the conscience is called Manas Sakshi. It's only called witness. It's not called Manas Judge. It's not called, your conscience is called only a witness. It's not called a judge, because the conscience can never be a judge. The only person the conscience can be a judge is who is absolutely sinless. That's what even Manusmriti also says that. And Dushyanta comes to the conclusion that he has not done any sins in his life. So the love what he has for Shakuntala should be correct. That is how he himself comes to the conclusion. He goes through his analysis and says that anybody who is absolutely sinless, the thought which arises in the sinless mind is also considered correct. And that is how we analyze. So basically, that is only the fifth grudge. That is why your conscience is not correct. Your conscience is only the bottommost. So my conscience tells this, that is not correct according to our Shastras. Don't go by your conscience. The only time you can go by your conscience is if you cannot follow all the four above, the Vedas, Shastras, Puranas, or Mahatmas, and then you are left alone and you are absolutely sure that you have not done any sin, then you can trust your conscience. So this is just given in Kalidasa's Shakuntala, which is, how to decide whether you are right or wrong. I just want to bring it up.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is very, very good introduction on that. So, and I think if you, I don't know whether you're going to have time, you can start putting this down. It may be useful. I know we are recording this, but somewhere if you start writing it down, saying these are the top 18 of those and those things, that will be useful for reference as we move forward. Okay. Thank you, Ji. Thank you so much. So Padmanabhanji, take it up for the next topic on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jamunathan. Vidaya Hridi Visvesham Vidaya Guruvandanam Balana Sukhabodhaya Krite Tarka Sangraha. So we started off with Tarka Sangraha. I mean, basically we went through what Nyaya Shastra is and what Vaisheshika is and how they combine together, how the Navinaya came and all those in the history in the last session. And we start with a small, just recollection of the few critical things of what the Tarka Sangraha talks about. So before that, Somaji wanted to say what are the textbooks I refer to. So my primary textbook is my Acharya Suryanarayana Mahodaya's classes from MIT Institute. Rest of them I just refer to texts from Vidyadhari by Devadatta Patil, this Mahodaya, and Tarka Pravesha from Navina Hole Mahodaya, that's from Sringeri. And then the Tarka Sangraha of Annambata, the first two books are in Sanskritam, the next two books are in English. The Tarka Sangraha from Annambata is from V.N. Jha, and the primer on Annambata, it's a very, very old book. I think it is about 1930s, I think. It's from the Chennai Sanskritam College. So, all of them have varied ideas brought in, and I have been influenced in my presentation in some places from these books. But I think primarily I to go by what our Acharya Suryanarayana Mahodaya had taught us during the session. So with that, let's try to recollect the three or four key definitions we saw last time. So one is the Dharma Dharmi Bhava, which is basically we say this is prevalent in all the objects in the universe. So there is Dharmi is the one which is the owner of that part, and Dharma is one of the quality of that part. So if you take a rose flower out there, rose flower by itself is the dharmi. And the redness of the rose is called the dharma of the rose. So that's a dharma dharmi bhava. So we'll talk about that in some other examples later. And then we also talked about adhara adheya bhava. So that means there is something which is supporting, and there is something that is on the supported surface. So one good example is the earth or the lawn, and where there's an apple on the lawn, so on the ground. So this is the adhara, the lawn surface, which is the adhara, and the apple on that is the adheya. So this is support and the supported. That's the definition for that. And the third thing we also discussed earlier was what is basically Nyaya Shastra coming up with? What is the Tarka Shastra coming up with, basically, right? So what we come up with is a definition, right? And how do we define? The definition is what we call it as an asadharana dharma. So the asadharana dharma is a unique way of identifying any object. Now, why do we need to identify every object? Why do we need to be, why do we need all these things, right? By only understanding the true nature of an object, we can connect ourselves to the object and enjoy the object. And also by, it also goes all the way up to the moksha sadhana. So by all these things are available only by identifying it with the true nature and the true knowledge of the object. So if an example we saw was, how do we define an elephant? So if you can say an elephant is an animal, it is a four-legged animal, it has eyes, it has ears, it has trunks, etc., etc. But I think what you have to define there is, what is the unique property of an elephant which is different from other animals? The unique property here is the trunk. So that is a unique dharma. So we say that elephant is an animal that is distinctly identified by a trunk. So that's a very loose definition that we can come up with. Now, when we are trying to define an object, normally we run into three different types of errors. So when you try to define a true nature of the object, it should be error-free. It should not be error-prone. So what are the three types of errors that normally one encounters during definition of an object? So this is a very important thing. This is spread across all the shastras in general. This is fundamental of this. So this is there are three doshas that happen. They are called ativyapti, avyapti, and asambhava. So the ativyapti is an over-applicability nature of the definition. Avyapti is a partial applicability, and asambhava is a non-applicability. So we saw three examples on that. So if somebody says elephant is an animal, it has 2 eyes, 4 legs, and a tail. Okay, then the problem is that's not true, because that is not an elephant, because a horse also has this, a cow also has this, a wolf also has this. So all these animals also have it. So we cannot uniquely identify an elephant. There is no asadharana dharma of an elephant. So this ativyapti dosha prevails there. So we need to avoid this. And there is another point also. So we can say elephant is an animal we know by the tusks, which is that danta, ivory tusks. So basically we know by elephant by that. Well, that is also not possible, because I think the female species doesn't have the tusks. So there are elephants without tusks. So this is an underpervation. So not all elephants have tusks. So then that way we should say this is also not a good lakshana. So we need to avoid this kind of an error also. So we cannot say elephant is an animal that has a tusk, or we cannot say elephant is an animal that is 4-legged, and so on. And similarly, we cannot also say something which is not existent at all, trying to make up something. Like elephant is an animal which has manes. I mean, manes are the line, whatever that line has, the hairs over the head. That is also not possible. That no sambhavam is not there. So that's why it's called asambhava. It's non-pervation. So with that, we conclude that we come up to a unique definition of an elephant, which says that without these defects, we define an elephant, saying that we can say something like it's a quadruped which has a trunk, and other things you can add with long ears, 4 legs, and all those things you can keep on adding to it. So you make elephant as a defined product, as a uniquely identified with a asadharana dharma of that elephant. That is also, we call that as an elephant-ness. And that elephant-ness is basically, that is the distinguishing factor of an elephant. We call it as a avachedaka, lakshyata avachedaka of the elephant. So the advantage of lakshanam is, it is giving a differentiation and designation, and that is what a lakshana is doing it for. That's the very famous line is, vyavrittir vyavaharo va lakshanasya prayojanam. So this is the most important thing, and this is how we define objects and make it as a unique object, so we understand the object very clearly. So the first shloka of the Tarka Sangraha is the Mangala shloka. We discussed that in the last class very briefly, and I also started with that Mangala shloka. So I'll start with the first sutra of the Mangala for the Tarka Sangraha. We started with the introduction of the sutra. So the first sutra is talks about the padarthas. So the sutra is Dravya Guna Karma Samanya Vishesha Samavaya Bhavaha Sapta Padarthaha. So in this sutra, in most of the sutras here, we will see this one big word, and which is which is a Dvandva Samasa. In Sanskritam, we call that as a Dvandva Samasa. In the Dvandva Samasa indicates that so you can have multiple words together and form a compound word out of it. So normally when you say there is a Ramaha Gacchati, there's one Rama going. There is a guy called Rama and Lakshmana who are working, then we say Rama Lakshmanau Gacchataha, which means you have to use a Dvivachanam for that. And if there is Rama, Lakshmana and Bharata are going, we say Rama, Lakshmana, Bharataha Gachanti. So that Bharataha will get a plural for it. So that because of there are three people, and the third person will get the plural for it. Similarly, the same way we are saying Abhavaha Sapta Padarthaha. So the Sapta Padarthaha, the 7 different Padarthas are there. What are the 7 different Padarthas? They are called, in Sanskritam, they are called as Dravya, Guna, Karma, Samanya, Vishesha, Samavaya, Abhavaha. So this is now what is this Padartha doing here? Right, the Padarthas basically represent a satisfactory classification of worldly things. So according to the Vaisheshika Shastra and the Tarka Sangraha text, the whole world, whatever you want to define in the whole world that is existing, that these are the 7 things that you can classify the whole world into. The whole world is classified into the 7 things. It's nothing beyond that 7 things. So if you know anything any object that you experience, anything you understand is one of these things, falls into one of these things. That's a simple thing. So this Padarthas explain that. So the Padartha is a knowable thing, which we call it as a Neya. It's a valid cognizable thing, it's called as a Prameya, and a nameable thing, which is called as a Abhideya. So it can be an either of this, but these are all terminologies that are used across. But basically a Padartha is a Padasya Artha, and this is how you identify any object in the world. So let's see an example here. This Padartha exists everywhere, and anything. So I took a very, very simple example. Let's take a flower. So the flower. So we know there are 7 Padarthas. Sometimes you can see all the 7 Padarthas existing in one case. Sometimes you may see 1 or 2 existing in that point of this time. But let us take this example where we can apply all the 7 Padarthas and see where these Padarthas fit into this equation here. So the first Padartha is a Dravya. So in normal terms, in normal colloquial terms, even among the Sanskrit scholars, or in our local languages as well, the word Dravya talks about money, right? So they say Dravyam Kudu, so means money is what they talk about. Or they talk about Dhanyas, like grains and all those things. Or some other colloquial words are used for Dravya. But in the Tarka Sangraha, because sometimes the words that we use here may be different, or I would say it's not maybe, it is different from the normal life, that normal words that we use. And also it is also a lot of places, a lot of us are exposed to the Advaita Shastra. A lot of the things that you see may not, Advaita Shastra may be totally different from what the Tarkika understands the world as, and how that Advaita Shastra understands the world as. So I'll try to explain whenever we see some minor differences here and there. So here, the Dravya here is basically a substance. Dravya is basically substance according to the Tarka Sangraha. It is any object or anything that we call it as a Dravya. So in this case, the flower itself is a Dravya. So, it's not the money or money part of it or anything like that. The flower itself is a Dravya. And the Guna is a quality that is built into it. So the quality of the flower, it is a red color flower is something we can say that, right? It's a red flower. So the red color is the Guna of the flower. And from a bud, the action happens when the bud flowers and blooms. So that blooming action is a karma. Some kriya. Karma is basically a kriya, an action that is happening there. And again, don't mix with other karmas that we have learned all over the places. This karma here, it talks about the kriya, the activity. And then there is also a definition of the flower. It has a flowerness, and it is a red colorness is inside, and a lot of dharmas are associated with that. That's called the samanya. So the samanya is a flowerness, defining flowerness as a class. Then the vishesha basically is saying that this particular flower is distinct from another hibiscus. So this is a very unique flower. So this is the flower I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that other hibiscus. So we are very focusing. The world has like millions of hibiscuses, but this particular hibiscus is special for me. That's what I'm focusing on. So that's the Vishesha aspect of it. And the Samavaya is the Dharma-Dharmi relationship, that is an eternal inherent quality present in the flower. The redness of the flower that is associated with that flower is the Samavaya Dharma that is there. And of course, the Abhava negates everything. So we can, so it is a hibiscus, we know that that's an existence of that flower. And we can also say it is not a lotus. So it is a Kamala Abhava, Kamalasya Abhava. So that it is not a lotus, it's an abhava, that is quality that is present in the flower. So the substance, quality, activity, general. So dravya stands for substance. I mean, I try to translate this, but translation may not be super intelligent sometimes. So I'll try to use the Sanskrita words to the maximum possible, so that we do some justice to that. So dravya stands for substance, guna stands for quality, karma stands for activity, samanyam is generality, vishesha is peculiarity, samavaya is inherence, abhava is non-existence. So these are the 7 padarthas through which the Tarkikas define the whole world. So, as we saw before, the padarthas are broadly classified into 2 classes. So, bhava padarthas and abhava padarthas. So, bhava means its existence. So, there are 6 of them. They sit around the bhava padartha category. So, the dravya, guna, karma, samanya, vishesha, samavaya, and samavaya. These are the padarthas which are they are existing. They are available for us. The padartha which is the abhava is the padartha which is not available for us. And the abhava padarthas, there are further classifications. We can go through that later when we see the padarthas. The structure of the text is in such a way that all these products, all these lines, all these items are presented first, and then they go into each of these words and try to explore each of the words and try to see where they fit in, how they fit into the whole picture. So the first section, we go through all the padarthas, all the sub-padarthas, all the sub-sub-padarthas, and sub-sub-padarthas. So there are so many classifications. So we can keep on going through the definitions. And then we go to the knowledge portion, with Anumanam and all those things comes into the later part of it. So if I explain the padarthas through the Adhara Adeya Bhava. So first is we say the Bhava padarthas only can be explained through the Adhara Adeya Bhava, because Abhava means it is not there. So the Adhara Adeya, from the Adhara Adeya padarthas, the dravya is always the Adhara padarthas in all the cases. And the Adheya padarthas that sit on the dravya is Gunaha, Kriya, Samanya, Vishesha. So they are all the Adheya padarthas. And the Samavaya padartha, the Samsargaha means it's inherence, the one which is sending the inherence to us. So that's different from the Adhara Adeya Bhava. So the Samavaya padartha talks about the inherence quality of the padartha. That's an angle. These are 2 kinds of definitions that how the padarthas are defined in the Tarka Sangraha. So we also see the padarthas the word padartha is used across all darshanas. So this is something which is interesting, which I found outside the scope of what I wanted to talk about Tarka Sangraha. Try to stick with the book, but sometimes I try to see something which is interesting and with what other authors say that I found out. That's pretty interesting to know that the padartha is present in all the darshanas. This is in the Nyaya Darshana, Vaiseshika Darshana, Mimamsa Darshana, Sankhya Darshana, Vedanta Darshanas. Also, all the darshanas have the word padarthas, and each of them have padarthas in their own locus and how they define it. So in the Nyaya Shastra, the original which Gautama Muni wrote, he spoke about the padarthas, but in that padarthas talk about the 16 topics to study the Shastra, which is like we saw the 16, which is Pramana, Prameya, Samshaya, Prayojana. Those are the things, right? Knowledge, objects of valid knowledge, doubt, purpose, instances, established, conclusions, members, tarka, knowledge, decisive knowledge, arguments, reasoning, all those things come under the padarthas under the Nyaya Shastra, according to the Nyaya Shastra. Kanada Muni came with the Vaiseshika Shastra. He came up with the 7 padarthas that we discussed earlier. Dravya Guna Karma Samanya, Vishesha, Samavaya, Abhava, all the 7 padarthas were discussed by him. So that is the 7 from the Vaisheshika Shastra. And the Bhata Mimamsa, the Mimamsa has 2 different schools. One is the Bhata Mimamsa and the other one is the Prabhakara Mimamsa. In the Bhata Mimamsa, there are 5 padarthas, which is like substance, the quality, activity, generality, and non-existence, which is Dravya, Guna, Karma, Samanya, Abhava. The Prabhakara Mimamsa does not take the Abhava padartha. So they go with the substance, quality, activity, generality, inherence, and they use something else other than that. Shakti, Sadrishya, Sankhya. So those 3, the number, and the Shakti is a power, and the Sadrishyam is similarities. They are considered as padarthas in the Prabhakara Mimamsa. The Sankhya Yoga defines the world's creation comes out of the imbalance of the Sattva, Rajotamas. So the main important padarthas for them are the Prakriti and Purusha. And Advaita Shastra talks about one Brahman, but the padarthas are Atman and Anatman, or Chit or Achit, like that. In the Visishta Advaita, the other factor of the Devata is also added to that. So Chit, Achit, and Devata. In the Dvaita, it is reduced to independent and dependent. Those are the 2 variations of the padarthas. Okay. Now, let's go through the Dravyam. So we saw Dravya, Guna, Karma, all those things are there. Let's start with the Dravyam as a padartha. Tatra Dravyani Prativyaptejo Vaivakashakaladikatmamanamsi Navaiva. So when you read it in that order, we should not give any pause because it is one word, and that's how we should do it. But for us to understand, I think we should do it in a justified manner. What I'll do is that Tatra Dravyani Prithivi Ap Tejaha Vayuhu Akashaha Kala Dik Atma Manamsi Navaiva. So again, Manas is a Shabda which is Sakaranta Shabda, which ends with is a Sakaranta Napumsakalinga Shabda. So there's only one Manas. Although there's only one Manas, we see Manamsi because the plurality comes because all the other 8 Dravyas are attached to that. So the last one gets a plurality. So Manamsi Navaiva. So there are a couple of things that we need to understand from the language perspective. So now we say Tatra. So what is this Tatra talking about? Because the first shloka says about the 7 padarthas. Then here it says, in the 7 padarthas, in the Dravya, this is what it is. So that the Tatra indicates a Dravya as the padartha. Then there is also one other important thing. It says Navaiva, Navaeva. So he is very clear. Annam Bhattacharya is very clear that there are only 9 Dravyas, nothing more than that. Why? Because there was during that time, that Mimamsa Shastra, one of the Mimamsa Shastras talked about darkness as a Dravyam. So Annam Bhattacharya refutes that and says, no, that's not that is darkness. He considered that as an absence of light. He didn't consider it as darkness as a Dravya. So it's a very big, serious discussion about that. But I think so. He emphasizes that Eva Shabda with that. So he says that Navaiva. So what are those 9 elements? What are the 9 Dravyani? 9 substances, 9 types of substances. So the 5 we know: Prithivi, Up, Tejo, Vayu, Akasha, very 5 basic elements. And now then we have Kala, Dik, Atma, Manas. Kala is the time as a Dravyam, directions as a Dravyam, Atma as a Dravyam, and the Manas, the mind as a Dravyam. So these are the 9 Dravyams that are there, these 9 substances out of the 7 padarthas. So out of the 7 padarthas, only one is a Chetana padartha, which is the Atma. Rest of them are all Jada padarthas, like Prithvi, Jalam, Vayu, Teja, Akasha, Kala, Dik, Mana. So they are, what Jada means is non-conscious based. The other one is Chetana Shabda, means it has some conscious base to us attached to that. Also, the Dravya is classified into another classification called Murta and Vibhu. Again, it's a technical term that I am introducing here. So they're kind of opposite to each other, or 2 ends of the spectrum. So some Dravyas like the Prithvi, Jalam, Vayuhu, Tejaha, and Manaha, they are all Murta Dravyas. What does Murta Dravya mean? It has a Kriyavatvam inside it. That means it actually has some movements associated with it. So this Prithvi, Jalam, and all those things, they do some movements. They have associated with some Kriya. It is keeping on, it creates some Kriya, some actions are going on. Something is going on all the time. The Vibhu is something as a defined as a Murta Dravya Samyogitvam, which means the Vibhuhu is beyond that, and it connects, it has a capacity to connect all the moving objects together. So like Akasha. Akasha here is a space. It is not the, I mean, usually Akasha is a sky is what normal colloquial language says, but here we say the space. That's Akasha, and it is spread all over the place. Kalaha, time. Time is, unlimited, bound, and they are bound to all the Murta Dravyas. Same thing with direction, and same thing with Atma. So that's how this classification has been made. The Murta and the Murta Dravyam and the Vibhu Dravyam, we keep talking about it that later in the later sections of this textual study. So that's why I just wanted to introduce the word Murta Padam and the Vibhuhu as a Padam. So, Lakshana of a Dravya, it can have a Gunatva and a Karmatva. So, it can have either one of this or it can have both of them. So, it is the Adhara for Guna and Karma. And the substance or substratum of qualities and movement is the realism of the Nyaya Shastra. So this is a word that I used from a text that was there. So basically, this is the understanding of this. This is the Adhara. This is the nature of the substance, and how its qualities and movements is what we analyze in the Nyaya Shastra. All right. Are we doing okay with the time, or how are we? We're good. Can we continue for a few minutes?
Yeah, move another 5 more minutes and then.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. So I'll finish Guna also then, maybe. So in this one, the Guna. Now, there are 24 Gunas that are there. Let's try that. Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, Sparsha, Sankhya, Parimana, Pratakva, Samyoga, Vibhaga, Paratva, Guru, Gurutva, Dravatva, Sneha, Shabda, Buddhi, Sukha, Dukkhe, Chada, Dosha, Prayatna, Dharma, Samskara, Chaturvati, Dharma, Samskara, Chaturvimshati Gunaha. So again, 24 Gunas are there in one word of the sutra. That's all it is. These are all the 24 together in one word. This Chaturvimshati Gunaha. So what are those 24 gunas? What are the qualities that are defined for an object, or that we can define according to the Pada Padarthas, especially Dravyas, because gunas reside only in Dravya. So there, Rupa. Rupa here indicates not the form, it is the color actually. Rupa is the color here. Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, Sparsha, Sankhya, Parimana, Kritatva, Samyoga, Vibhaga, Paratva, Aparatva, Gurutva, Dravatva, Sneha, Shabda, Buddhi, Sukha, Dukkha, Ichcha, Dosha, Prayatna, Dharma, Adharma, Samskaraha. So these are the 24 types of gunas that are available for us. Let's try to understand the meaning of them as well. So the 24 types of gunas are classified as external and internal. So the first set of gunas that are here on the left hand side talk about the external nature, external gunas which are acting in the external world, and the second set of gunas are towards the internal for us, internal within us. So the color, taste, smell, touch. Sparsha means is the capacity to touch kind of a thing. Sankhya is a number, numerical representation. Parimana is measurement, size, those kind of things like big, large, and all those things. Pratakvam is separateness, how objects can separate. That happens. Samyoga is contacts. Vibhaga is disjunction. It's breaking up, and all the and Paratva is remoteness. Aparatva is nearness. Gurutva is heaviness, due to which an object can fall. That's the real definition of Gurutva. An object falls, and it happens only on a solid substance, like that's why the Prithvi-based objects only can fall. That's a Gurutva. And Dravatva is fluidity. That is a liquid flow. If you drop water, it just flows in the ground. So that's fluid Dravatvam. Sneha is a special quality. It's available only in water. When water is mixed with the flour, the chapati creation. So that's a sneha. Basically, when you make the chapati, you mix water and flour together, and you create a compound out of it. That combination, that thing is called a sneha, and shabda is a sound. So these are all existing in the outside world. I mean, outside world, outside to us, and the internal world. What is within us? Buddhi, this cognition. Sukha, pleasure, sukha, dukkha, pressure, sorrow, pain, desire, aversion. Prayatna is, prayatna means effort, but it is actually, it's considered as the thing that happens in the mind, the process that happens in the mind to make the effort. So that is the prayatna. That is exactly what is called as a prayatna. And dharma, probably no English translation is available, but we all know what that is. And samskara. Samskara is impression, or we define that as a memory. So these are the internal gunas that are available to us. And we are going to go through all these 24 gunas, each of them, and how it's, in which dravya each of these gunas are available and how they play with each other. Okay.
So this is beautiful. I think I like your gurutva. So guru tattva, gurutva part is very important, because I heard somewhere that the guru we call for Jupiter is really not the guru, is the terminology used there is based on the gurutva word rather than the removal of darkness. And it's very, very important, because sitting long time ago to call Jupiter Guru, Jupiter is the heaviest planet. To use the Gurutva tendency to name it as the heavy is itself shows a level of observation and intelligence, which is very amazing. And we forget about it. The astronomical astrology thing is amazing on that to say. This was not my thing. I just was hearing Swami Omkarananda state this.
Oh, very good.
So he was bringing that observation to say that in this scenario, Gurutva for Jupiter came from the Gurutva Tattvam, which is the heaviness. So I'm very good you brought that up, Padmanabhanji. Very interesting. So,
okay, so I'll take a break here. I think we are out of time. So I'll open it for any questions, for a couple of questions, and I think we can wrap up because it's already 10:40 for you all. So.
Thank you, Padmanabhanji. Very nice, very well organized lecture.
oh yeah, absolutely. This is very nice done. I think this time also works out. We will, hopefully this will interest more people. And as I said, last time and all, we did not put it online. Now it is in our channel. So we'll put it back into the playlist as we go forward. There are any questions from anybody, please contact individually or
slides,
use the email, please.
Yeah, I will share the slides with you. Definitely, Mahodaya. I will share the slides. So, do we have a SVBF slide sharing, or do I just share it from my private? I can do that too. So from my private drive.
Padmanabhanji, if you're sending slides, you can also send me to Padmanabhanji to my private email, or that is whichever is preferable. Very nice.
Absolutely, sir. No problem.
Please send a request to that lecture email, then we can send it out for sure. It's easier. Okay. If you know, for example, these people you can, but others who are listening to, maybe they will listen online, and if they really need a copy of the slides and if it's shareable, please send an email to the email address, which we'll share in a few minutes. Then you can use that to do that. Thank you.
dslectures@svbfnorth.org, right?
Correct. That's correct. Okay. Dharma Shastra lectures. DS lectures at svbfnorth.org. Correct.
Sure. We'll definitely send it to those people requesting through that email ID.
I think this works out. Half an hour of focused Dharma Shastra, half an hour of focused Nyaya Shastra. I think I think it's very reasonable, and it will work out well, I think.
So Mahodaya, I had a question. Thank you so much, Padmanabhan Mahodaya. The slides actually reinforce our learning for us to appreciate how vast and how meaningful all of them have been put together. So my question was for Jambunathan Mahodaya. We talked about Veda Dhyanam and what are the rules and responsibilities of going through that properly. Maybe if you don't have time, we can take it next time. Like Anadhyanam happens like when it's Purnami or Amavasya and all that. So what is the logic behind that? Or maybe you can give some perspective there.
Well, I mean, the way I can glean it is because I was reading about this Anadhyayana. Mostly, it is a way of giving a break for the brahmacharis. There used to be, it is even putting them to study 7 days a week, and some of them are created in a format where basically they can get a break. That seems to be the ulterior motive. But then there are some days when they think the mental fluctuations may not be appropriate for you to focus and study. And for example, the thunderstorm, when the tides are high, do the Paurnami. So those might be, your mental status might not be stable, So, like I said, when I was reading, when I released, if there's a big thunderstorm, it's not a good day for Adhyayana, it seems. So, probably your focus, concentration might not be good, or maybe the divinities respond to a different way.
Even when Grahanam happens, like solar lunar eclipse, it's Anadhyanam.
Yes.
Because of,
and some of them are because, possibly the reasons is, like I said, even I was giving the example of the Pradakshina for the Ashwatha tree. It is to be done only in one particular time, place. If you do it other time, you might even get a negative effect. So probably the deities, because we believe that all the Veda mantras are things that have a deity behind it. And each deity has things which it likes or not likes. They're like humans. The deities are not, the deities also have likes and dislikes. And probably when you go in as long as in the Vyavaharika level, you have to follow the rules. If this deity likes it, do this way. So some of them could be a deity-based thing. Some of them could be a mental-based thing. And some of them could be just logically giving a break for the kids. So probably those could be the reasons, for the Annadhyana Kalas.
Glad that you brought the mind aspect, because Chandra is associated with the mind, right? Chandra Mama Soja. So that is that's, and probably you may be able to connect with that point too.
Also, if you could start at 9 o'clock rather than 9:30, would help me. So,
absolutely, sir. I think that's something as a housekeeping we want to discuss, right? So, Jamunathan sir.
No, 9 o'clock seems reasonable. The only thing is I realized next February last week, Saturday, we are going to New Zealand trip on Sunday early morning. We are leaving to, going for a 10-day trip to New Zealand with a group here, and our flight leaves early morning on Sunday. So, but I think 9 to 10 might work out that way, or we have to do it a little evening, like maybe 2 to 4 or something on that Saturday, I don't want to go too late. I have to go and sleep a little early. We have to get early up in the morning next day. So this is for just the February session. I just realized, the tickets were booked 3 months ago, so I can't change it now. So, but I think we can do 9 to 10 should be okay too. We can also finish up early. It's, the whole reason we kept 9:30 was it would be 8 o'clock for Arbarji. If Arbarji is not in the picture, because we don't want to put too much early for him. And, if we start 9 p.m. for us, it will be 7:30 a.m. for him. So that was the whole reason. And I think for us, 9 to 10 p.m. will work out. And for Padmanabhanji, it should be 8 to 9 p.m. then Central Standard Time. So I think it should be reasonable too. So yeah, I think that, the Veda mantras, especially the deity aspect is very important. And, we are learning that. And, even that is why when you go with each deity, there is a way of, appeasing them. So that might also play a role why some of them cannot be done on some days also,
Okay. Thank you so much. I think this is very good. And Padmanabhanji, take us home by finishing up our final slides on that. Thank you. All of you, see you next week. I think 9 next month, 9 o'clock would be good.
9 o'clock, but if possible, I will see, but 9 to 10 should be work. Okay, I think I should be able to still go to sleep early.
We'll keep at 9 right now, and Jamunathan, let me know if that is an earlier time. We will work on that. Thank you so much.
Mangalam Guru Shri Chandramaulishwar ke Shakti Ganapati Sharadambige Shankaracharyar ke Shakti Ganapati Mahaganapati Sharadambige ke Kala Bhairavar ke Kali Durgai ke Veeradiya Shura Hanuma Maruti Charanatir ke Mallikarjunar ke Selva Janardanar ke Amba Bhavani Kambada Ganapati Chandi Chamundi ke Sri Krishna Bhagavan ke Sri Chakravasini ke Sita Rama Lakshmana Sakita Maruti Charanatir ke Vidyaranyar ke Vidya Shankarar ke Vagishwari ke Vajradega Garuda Anjaneyar ke Shri Valli Deva Sena Sameta Subramanyar ke Tungabhadrai ke ஸ்ருங்கநிவாசினிக்கே ஸ்ருங்கேரி புரியில் நிலைத்திருக்கும் எங்கள் சாரதாம்பிகைக்கே சச்சிதானந்த சிவ அபிநவ நிருசிம்ஹ பாரதிக்கே ஸ்ரீ சந்திரசேகர பாரதி குரு சார்வபௌமருக்கே ஸ்ரீ சந்திரசேகர பாரதி குரு வித்யா தீர்த்தருக்கே ஸ்ரீ சந்திரசேகர பாரதி குரு பாரதி தீர்த்தருக்கே ஸ்ரீ சந்திரசேகர பாரதி குரு விதுஷேகர பாரதிக்கே மங்களம் குரு ஸ்ரீ சந்திரமௌலீஸ்வருக்கே சக்தி கணபதி சாரதாம்பி சங்கராச்சாரியருக்கே சக்தி கணபதி மகாகணபதி சாரதாம்பிகைக்கே ஸ்ருங்கேரி புரியில் நிறைந்திருக்கும் எங்கள் சாரதாம்பிகைக்கே.
धन्यवाद.
See you all later.